We are very focused on design excellence within our projects. It's something that our clients expect out of us, and we believe that our buildings need to communicate to the public and communicate a story about their purpose and what they are and why they're there. So we look to each project specifically and individually. Each one is really a custom design for us. And our response to each project, each client's goals, and the program, the uses of a project are specific to each and every project. So as we develop design and think about, what a building looks like, how it interacts with the site, interacts with public realm, we're also thinking about what is the concept that drives the overall response and decision-making in design for a project. And that concept is there to communicate a story about the building. And so each of our buildings has that story behind it. Sometimes it's evident in terms of how it's perceived and recognized. Sometimes it's a little more subtle, and you kind of have to look for what the cues are. But each one really has a developed design and storyline behind it that is a narrative that informs the project from start to finish with our work. We feel that's important, that each thing is authentic, that it connects to its place, and that it communicates what it is, what it's doing, and why it's there. Sometimes when we're trying to achieve something, especially in a more urban area, and we're looking at how to achieve more density, and we're working with zoning and planning to find and determine the right response to a site and to how to achieve more density, we're doing things like understanding the best way to activate the ground plane, to bring people into a site, to provide porosity to it so that we can add more unique spaces, more places where people can be and visit, congregate, interact, and through that provide a more dynamic space that interacts more with its surroundings, with its neighborhood, with its community. And in many projects, we're trying to solve for parking. That can work in direct opposition to being able to create a more open ground plane. So we've had to find ways, working with our clients and contractors and the city, to design a project where we can put that parking below grade so we can open up the ground plane. And then build above that, adding density. And that can be complicated in reacting to budget, reacting to how we get into the site and how we bring vehicles below grade. But when we can achieve it, such as we're doing at Peabody Union, Peabody Plaza at Rolling Mill Hill, or at 1401 Church, the Motley, it gives us the opportunity to open up that space for people to utilize it, instead of using it for parking garages and ramps and cars and that sort of thing. So sometimes sites determine some of that. They influence that. They suggest certain solutions. And sometimes we just have to figure out how to make that work on each site. But that is, the exciting thing for us about new sites and coming up with the unique response to each one. Currently working toward completing construction of a project in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It's the Moran Foundation, which is a not-for-profit foundation that supports many different groups in that community down there. They have a real history and story behind that foundation with Mr. Moran, Jim Moran, for whom it is named. And the success of his career and his interests, and also his focus on community and entrepreneurial interactions and helping others grow within the community. So our project there tells a story about him and about his life, but we're also in a location where resiliency in terms of building design is important, meaning it's not out of the realm that they have a Category 5 hurricane there or storm surge and flooding. So some of the response there has dealt with how do we make this building something that can survive those conditions. We lift it up above grade to allow for flooding if that occurs in a hurricane. And instead of having to go below grade with parking there, we've done some other things by lifting it up. Parking is at grade, but then it's concealed, and achieve other things within the site by doing that. But we've also, formed the building such that it is more structurally sound in those conditions as well. So that's kind of one thing, resiliency. Another real focus is sustainability, which takes on many different means in which we can be sustainable, whether we're saving water or saving energy, how we deal with the landscaping at a site, how we deal with the roof plane of a building. Is it green? Is it reflective? Does it have solar panels? All that sort of thing. But something we've been trying to incorporate into our projects more and more often is something like at James Lawson High School here in Nashville. Not only do we have solar panels on the roof and bioretention and geothermal in the ground for HVAC systems, efficient heating and cooling of a building, but we're also harvesting the rainwater from the roof of this high school into capturing that rainwater, putting it into a large cistern that's in the ground and then is used to flush the toilets in the building. So we're being super efficient with water. Those kind of things are very hidden, but if you find the clues, they're there. They all incorporate toward those sustainability goals and serve to produce a better building for the environment, better building that's longer lasting, more efficient, and creates a healthier indoor environment. So there are many aspects to that. Another one is a fairly newer structural system called mass timber. And we've completed a few of those in office and in educational. We're starting the first building for the University of Tennessee, Knoxville right now, to have mass timber in it. And the qualities of mass timber are great from a sustainability standpoint. It's renewable. We can grow new wood. It sequesters carbon. It's also a prefabricated system. So once it's designed, we go through a process with a contractor, subcontractor to basically take all the components, get them fabricated, deliver it to a site, and then it just gets assembled on the site. While that structural system's a little bit more expensive, we can offset that cost by the ability to construct more quickly and save time overall in the project. But it has inherent values with biophilia, green properties that enhance the interior environment and well-being. And so there are many, many applications for that. We're looking at it in hotel applications now, have already used it in office and educational, multifamily, high-rise, hospitality, and apartment will all be on the horizon here. So it's it's a fantastic system and has many great advantages. So we foresee more and more of that coming in the future. It is definitely a growing trend. It's not mainstream yet. It's not something that every project is suited for at this point, but as mass timber evolves and becomes more flexible, more capable of being used in different scenarios, as contractors are more familiar with it and we develop better systems for growing the material, sourcing the material, bringing it closer to us. Now, some of that material comes from Austria, some of it comes from Canada, and some of it comes from the south with southern yellow pine. But as it becomes a more mainstream solution, it becomes easier to incorporate in new projects. And codes are adapting to it as well. Building codes have had to go through an adoption process with the system to test it, to understand it, to make sure it's safe from a fire standpoint, from a earthquake standpoint, so that it can meet all the same requirements as steel or concrete, and that has been evolving and advancing rapidly. So there's more coming in the future, more widespread adoption, I'd say. Prefabrication is a big one, and our project at 1401 Church that's under construction now will use a what's called a precast concrete facade system that's also taking that a little bit further, and from a prefabrication standpoint, in that we're installing the glazing, the window, in these concrete panels. So those get built off-site, windows get installed, other materials and components are added to that panel. They're brought to the site, it's lifted in place to the building and installed. So it speeds up construction and erection of a project, kind of like mass timber is capable of doing. So I think that's one example. We will see more and more things being prefabricated, brought to a building site, more complete, ready for quicker installation and construction. And that'll be necessitated by budget, by tighter sites in urban areas, by tighter timeframes. Our timeframes for construction just kind of continually shrink, as expectations change, as we find ways to move faster in design and in construction. And so that's definitely what we see on the horizon. There are many facets to those, and many ways in which building a project can address it and incorporate it. And they're all important. They all take time and focus. There's a perception that it is more expensive to do something that's more sustainable. That's not always the case. It can be. The further we go, the more we add to it. There are added costs at some point. We can also offset those costs. And the construction of a building is not necessarily the most expensive part of a building. The overall life cycle of a building is more expensive than the construction itself. So if we're able to design a building that operates more efficiently and incorporate more efficient HVAC systems, heating and cooling systems, better glazing that cuts down on solar heat gain inside the building, use a green roof that reduces heat gain in the building and better insulates a building, maybe harvests that water from rainstorms and collects it in a cistern and uses it internally in the building. the list kind of goes on and on, from that standpoint, is in terms of how we can make a better performing building that saves on energy costs, utility costs over the life cycle of a building. Sustainability also addresses recycled materials, recycled content, and whether or not we're using chemicals within building materials, especially on the interior of a building. So we can create a healthy environment by using the right materials, ones without chemicals that affect us adversely, healthy air circulation in a building, air filtration in a building, natural daylight in a way that enhances circadian rhythms and enables us to perform better as students, perform better in an office environment, to live better in a residential environment. We look at all those things as all part of sustainability, and with resilience, how does a building resist natural disasters around it, whether it's tornadoes or fires or hurricanes, et cetera, floods, thinking through those things early in design, working with a talented overall design team, with the owner and contractor that understand these and are primary goals, we can get to incredible solutions for buildings that go well beyond what are required as minimums in the construction industry, by building codes, and provide a better building that has positive impacts not only on the occupants, but can also positively impact a neighborhood and a community. This profession's really exciting. We work with so many people that are focused on the public good of cities and neighborhoods and communities, and it comes down to every building, it comes down to every block, and so there's this overarching collaboration that happens, whether it's a code department or a sewer department or contractors or whatever it may be that we're engaged with, where we're trying to enhance our environment through good design, through good construction practices, and get to outcomes that benefit a city going forward. And so, our job is never the same from one day to the other. It's always changing, and things advance, and whether it's a building code or a material and systems that we've talked about, and that gives us the opportunity to keep raising the bar on what we do, keep trying to achieve better outcomes, and incorporate new innovations and creative thinking. And so whether that's a performance hall, whether that's a apartment building or a office building, whatever it might be, the importance of working together with all the entities that it takes to achieve a project is paramount. But you also recognize that we're all trying to get to a better outcome, and planning departments, code departments, transportation departments are all headed in the same direction in terms of making things better. So that interaction to achieve that is something that this entire team involved in any project should be working toward every day. Nashville has been such a hot city, and we've seen a lot of different people come to our community to live here, to work here, to develop projects here. And they come in and ask, what is Nashville? What defines it? What's special about it? And so we have to answer that in our designs and in our architecture. It's a response to the culture of Nashville. It's a response to the climate of Nashville, the location, the vernacular in many areas, and the context. And I think an authentic response in design can take all those things into account and give something back that does reflect, what Nashville is. And we like to tell that also as part of the story in our architecture as well, and in the concepts. And we try not to tell the same thing all the time, is because Nashville's not just one one kind of solution, one answer. It's a pretty multifaceted animal. There's a lot of different things that have shaped Nashville, music, of course, and beyond. But Nashville does have such an incredible culture, an environment here that it does make it a special place to design and build buildings. And so that really becomes part of our language in what we do. And I think looking at our portfolio of our work, hopefully we're enhancing the fabric of this community through the contributions of our buildings, and that they do reflect the community in each of those answers.